It's hard to believe it's already the second day of Mr. Porter's trial. Time just flies by when investigating, doesn't it?
Yeah. Then again, yesterday was quite a day. I just hope we won't be learning any more shocking truths about old family friends.
You can say that again. Who could have guessed that Mr. Porter was really an undercover FBI agent working on one of the country's biggest organized crime cases? At least we now know that Jack went to the tournament room because someone claiming to be the masked stranger promised to give him information related to his investigation. It was probably a trap set by Mr. House, but who knows? Unfortunately, that is something we absolutely cannot bring up in court, because as Jack said, it would jeopardize their entire case.
Ah, there's my trusty defense team.
Glad to see you could make it, Mr. Porter.
Well, it would be pretty bad form to miss my own trial. The guards made sure I was up bright and early. And speaking of the trial, where's Nicky? Thought I'd get a few comforting words from him too.
Daddy's hard at work checking some other leads while we're in court. He did ask us to send his regards.
I see. You can always count on old Nicky. Listen, about yesterday.
It's okay. We'll keep quiet about what you told us.
And Daddy's none the wiser. For now.
I see. I'll just be over there if you need me.
Okay then, Mr. Porter.
I see things are still awkward between those two.
I wonder if Prosecutor Gavin has had any luck locating the masked stranger. Getting them on the witness stand could really help us out.
We can always hope, but we still have to be ready to deal with anything else he might throw at us. It's unlikely he's been sitting around twiddling his thumbs, considering his recent zeal.
Right. According to Emma, he seemed to be really invested in this case.
And there's something else about Klavier that really puzzles me.
What's that, Polly?
Remember the deal he offered us on the first day of the trial? I still can't figure out what that was all about. He's never done something like that before.
It might be a good idea to ask him directly when we get the chance.
I suppose you're right.
The court will be in session shortly. Would those attending please take their places in the courtroom?
So, think we're ready for round 2, Apollo?
I'd say we're about as ready as we can be, all things considered. We're gonna be just fine.
That's what I like to hear.
I know Mr. Porter is innocent, and that means there has got to be a way to prove it somehow. I don't know what Klavier is planning, but as long as we have the truth on our side, we will find a way to get through this. Let's do this! Here comes justice!
Court is now back in session for the trial of Mr. Jack Porter. Are the prosecution and the defense ready?
The prosecution is ready, Herr Judge.
The defense is ready as well, Your Honor.
Very good. Yesterday, Mr. Justice brought up the possibility that the real masked stranger may have been in the tournament room with the defendant and the victim during the murder. However, this alleged key witness had since disappeared. I asked both the defense and the prosecution to look further into this. Prosecutor Gavin, have you managed to locate the masked stranger?
Unfortunately, we have not, Herr Judge. We had some unexpected issues with resuming our investigation of the scene.
Issues? What sort of issues?
The federal police showed up and took over the crime scene. Apparently, it is somehow tied to one of their own separate investigations. However, this is only tangentially related to the trial at hand since our team still has full jurisdiction over the investigation into Herr House's murder. Because of this, our focus had to be shifted elsewhere. And while we did not manage to locate the masked stranger, we were able to pursue other leads. Thus, we've got ample new evidence to further back the prosecution's assertion of Herr Porter's guilt.
I see you haven't wasted a single moment, Prosecutor Gavin. How about you, Mr. Justice? Have you discovered anything of note?
The security log we found could be useful in countering Klavier's theories, but if we bring it up, it may end up compromising Jack's role in the federal investigation. We had better steer clear of the topic for now.
The defense has also worked very hard.
I will take that as a no in that case.
Come on, Polly. You could have at least tried to sound more convincing.
I suppose we should get started with today's proceedings then. Although, to be frank with you, Prosecutor Gavin, while new evidence is certainly nothing to scoff, I cannot see how the trial can be concluded without us hearing the masked stranger's testimony.
Excellent! Perhaps this will give us more time to...
Do not worry, Herr Judge. While the masked stranger has not been located yet, what we have discovered makes their testimony completely unnecessary.
Or not. Why do I ever bother getting my hopes up?
After all, the masked stranger's testimony is of little value if they never really were at the scene of the crime.
Wait, what?
What is Klavier up to now?
Whatever it is, I better put a stop to it. Objection! What about the recording from yesterday? We've already established it belonged to the stranger.
I agree, the voice is without a doubt theirs. But the important question is, was the masked stranger truly inside the room when their voice was recorded?
I'm not sure what you're insinuating, Prosecutor Gavin. I don't see how else their voice would be on the tape.
Then, please, have a look at this, Herr Judge. The prosecution would like to present this walkie-talkie that was found on Herr House's body. We believe it was inconsequential at first, but upon closer examination, we have found that it is connected to a bug in suite number 3, the room the masked stranger was staying in.
Bugs? In such a nice hotel? How disappointing! I would definitely ask for my money back.
Not that kind of bug, Herr Judge. I meant a bug, as in a hidden microphone for eavesdropping on someone. With such a device hidden in the masked stranger's room, Herr House could have heard anything that was going on inside. This means that the masked stranger's voice could have been transmitted to the otherwise soundproof tournament room via Herr House's walkie-talkie.
You mean the stranger was being spied on by Mr. House? Goodness, regular bugs are bad enough, but this is something that warrants at least a complimentary bottle of grape juice in addition to a full refund.
Refund? How about a criminal charge, Your Honor?
Damn it! Klavier sent us right back to square one!
I'm not about to give up that easily. He still has to convince the court.
Mr. Justice, what is your opinion regarding the relevance of this walkie-talkie?
You want to hear what I think? Clearly the prosecution's claim is conjecture at best, Your Honor. It sounds highly improbable that the voice could be transmitted via a walkie-talkie.
Herr Forehead, please. The police have already performed the necessary tests and found that it's entirely possible. The soundproofing in the tournament room does not block radio waves, and the sound is as crisp as if you were standing right in the room.
Oh? You certainly were meticulous in your investigation.
I'm not in the habit of pulling theories out of my hat, unlike some people I happen to know.
Gee, thanks.
In that case, I see no issues with this evidence. It shall be added to the court record.
Thank you, Herr Judge. Now, as the court may recall, the defense claimed that since the masked stranger's voice was heard on the tournament room tape, the true masked stranger must also have been in the tournament room. However, the defense never established exactly how the masked stranger could have entered the locked tournament room, which I have to say would be quite a feat, since the door code was only known to the victim and the defendant. However, the prosecution's theory solves this little problem. The only logical way the masked stranger's voice could have ended up on the tape was via Hare House's walkie-talkie. And since this supposed third person at the crime scene is now gone, the fact remains that only Hare Porter could have shot Hare House.
Why, Prosecutor Gavin, that does make a lot more sense than the defense's theory.
No need to rub it in, Judge.
This is not good, Polly. What do we do?
If we can't prove the stranger was in the room, then we'll just have to dismantle Klavier's arguments one by one.
Oh, you look like you wish to say something, Hare Forehead. Did you have a rebuttal in mind, perhaps?
I certainly have some questions. You're just casually dropping the fact that Mr. House was spying on the masked stranger? I believe that kind of thing definitely warrants further examination.
Does it, though? Considering the circumstances, it's not too surprising that Hare House wanted to keep an eye, or in this case, an ear, on his toughest competitor. Of course, eavesdropping on someone like this is illegal, but seeing as Hare House can no longer be prosecuted, I fail to see the point in dwelling on this.
Then let me ask you this, Prosecutor Gavin. You're claiming that the masked stranger's voice was transmitted to the tournament room via the hidden microphone in suite number 3, correct?
Yeah, what of it?
Do you have any evidence proving that the masked stranger was, in fact, inside their room at the time of the murder?
Other than the fact that it is common knowledge the masked stranger never leaves their room at the venue they are staying in?
Exactly! This is a murder trial we're talking about. Show us something more tangible than just common knowledge.
I believe the court does warrant something more concrete, Mr. Gavin.
Very well. Luckily, I should have just the thing to satisfy Hare Forehead. After all, he handed this very evidence to us on a silver platter.
Oh, boy.
What do you mean, Prosecutor Gavin?
The lovely Fräulein detective told me that the defense team stumbled upon a wiretap inside the phone in the masked stranger's room. We followed it to the source, which turned out to be Hare House's office. But what's even more interesting is that the wiretap was hooked up to a recording device.
Don't tell me.
Why, yes, we did recover a recording of a call made from the phone in the masked stranger's room. A call that was made before midnight. Proving that the masked stranger was most definitely in their room around the time that the crime took place.
No way!
Damn it! I knew that wiretap was gonna come back to haunt us.
I guess it's a bit too late for me to make it disappear, huh?
Not to mention extremely illegal.
Herr Judge, with your permission, the prosecution would like to play the recording to the court.
By all means, Prosecutor Gavin. Please do.
Hey! It's too late now. I did what I had to. At least he won't be bothering me at the tournament now. And don't you dare lecture me on this. I'm going to hit the hay now. Don't bother calling back.
Conversation recorded. December 31st, 11:20 p.m.
That didn't sound like the masked stranger at all!
Or anyone else we know either.
Indeed. Yet the fact remains that this call was made from the masked stranger's room. Therefore, we can conclude that this is the masked stranger's true voice. Obviously, they were not wearing the voice modulator mask during this call.
Wow. Talk about a contrast to that cool voice we heard before.
I certainly wasn't expecting the stranger to sound like that.
Still, why on earth would the stranger jeopardize their secrets and take their mask off for the call? And more importantly,
Prosecutor Gavin, have you been able to find out who was on the other end of the masked stranger's call?
Our investigators are still looking into it. The number the stranger called is an international number located in Virginia. We've also confirmed it's someone's personal cell phone number, which is why it is taking us so long to track down the owner. The Borginian authorities are notorious for their love of red tape.
I see. But now I believe this is enough proof that the masked stranger was in their room near the time of the murder.
Wait a second! What about what was said in the call? That was a clear admission of foul play of some kind.
Unfortunately for you, Herr Forehead, the content of the phone call isn't of much importance considering the facts of this case. After all, there were no threats of murder that I heard on that tape.
I hate to say it, but he's probably right.
Right or not, this phone call rubs me the wrong way.
In conclusion, I believe the prosecution has now decisively proven how the masked stranger's voice ended up on the tournament room recording.
Prosecution's theory sounds quite reasonable to me. It seems that the masked stranger's testimony will not be required after all.
But that phone call was made at least 40 minutes before the murder. A lot of things could happen in 40 minutes.
Then surely you will present the court with evidence that the masked stranger could access the locked tournament room during those 40 minutes? Without an opportunity to do so, they cannot be indicted, and neither will their testimony be necessary.
I'd like to return to this particular question later.
Polly, if this was a magic show, I'd be using a distraction right about now, before the audience has too much time to think about what Prosecutor Gavin just said.
Sounds like a plan. I know there's at least one part of the case that has been bothering me. Your Honor, even if the prosecution's theory gives another explanation as to how the masked stranger's voice ended up on the recording, it raises another problem. If nobody else other than the defendant and the victim entered the tournament room, then what set the prize money on fire?
I'm glad that you asked, Herr Forehead. Unfortunately, the exact time the fire started could not be reliably estimated, but the cause was clear. According to the arson team's report, the cause of the fire was a short circuit in one of the Pinky Rabbit dolls placed on top of the prize money. And taking into account Herr Nash's testimony yesterday, it's certain that the fire started after the murder had already happened. In other words, the fire started all by itself. No third person on the scene required.
And I suppose you have evidence to show too?
Indeed. Thanks to Herr Justice's firefighting heroics, the arson team managed to salvage what remains of our little fire starter. The prosecution would like to submit it as evidence.
Oh dear! That poor rabbit! The court accepts it into evidence.
So, it was a Pinky Rabbit doll that set the money on fire then.
Yikes, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. You think we should take on that case next?
I'm not morally bankrupt enough to start defending self-immolating plush toys.
Well, I'm glad that was cleared up. This case seems to be wrapping up quite nicely.
Poor thing. Looks like this case had more victims than we originally thought.
Hold on. That doll. I think it's just what we needed for a proper rebuttal.
Prosecutor Gavin, that doll is anything but incidental to this case.
Really? The whole casino, including the tournament room, is practically covered in Pinky Rabbit merchandise. How is this one any different from the rest?
Is it perhaps a collector's edition? I believe my granddaughter has one of the blue bandicoots.
Badger, Your Honor.
Oh, my bad. I always seem to mix those two up.
How?
Aren't we forgetting something?
Oh, right. Please tell us what the problem is, Mr. Justice.
Very well. I have good reason to believe that this particular Pinky Rabbit doll belongs to Miss Felicia Lucky Garnet.
A good reason, you say? Well, let's hear it then, Herr Forehead.
It's kind of hard to explain, but I guarantee you that she will recognize this doll as her own.
Is that so? In that case, I say we humor you. Herr Judge, I ask that you send for Fräulein Garnet so she can identify the doll.
I'm not quite sure where you're going with this, but if Prosecutor Gavin thinks it's important, Bailiff, please bring Miss Garnet to the stand.
Right away, Your Honor.
Splendid. Oh, and please tell Fräulein Sky's team to check out the backstage area when they get the opportunity, just in case.
Aw, man. Part of me hopes it's not Mr. Pinky. Lucky will be heartbroken.
Yes, I hate to break the news to her like this, but right now we haven't got much of a choice.
Could we please have your name and occupation, lovely Fräulein?
Felicia Garnett, entertainer and professional gambler. And how is our audience doing tonight? Fantastic! Now, how can I help all of you lovelies out?
Fräulein Garnet, Herr Justice was adamant that you'd be able to identify a piece of evidence for us. So please, what can you tell us about this?
Oh my goodness! Mr. Pinky! What happened to you?
I believe that counts as a positive identification, Prosecutor Gavin.
Quite.
For the record, Miss Garnet, are you certain this doll is the one you always carry with you?
Yes, that is Mr. Pinky. Or rather, what remains of him. I am 110% sure.
I'm afraid I'm going to need more than that, Fräulein. Unfortunately, plush toys don't have fingerprints, so we need to somehow confirm that these remains really belong to Herr Pinky. What specifically makes the doll stand out?
I'm sorry. I think I need a moment. This is all very shocking.
In that case, allow me to explain. The fingertips on this doll are white, because Miss Garnet's doll is modeled after the classic Pinky Rabbit. The fingertips on the merchandise promoting the new version are all pink!
Exactly. Mr. Justice certainly knows his Pinky Rabbit.
Somehow, I am not at all surprised that you would know this fact, Herr Forehead.
Way to out yourself as a pinky nerd to the entire court, Apollo.
And anyway, I answered the question, didn't I?
Fair enough, Herr Justice. I'll accept that this is indeed Fräulein Garnet's doll.
Impressive! I suppose niche knowledge can be of use sometimes. Albeit I've yet to find use in memorizing the scores of old World Curling Championship games from the last decade or so.
Please, can someone tell me what happened to him?
Mr. Pinky was found inside the tournament room. Apparently he was the cause of the fire.
Poor Mr. Pinky. At least he went out like a star, in a blaze of glory.
Now, this raises a very important question. Miss Garnet always keeps her Pinky Rabbit doll by her side, except for when she is performing. Incidentally, Mr. Pinky disappeared from Miss Garnet's dressing room during the Midnight Jazzstravaganza show.
That's right! We've been looking for him ever since he went missing on that fateful night.
My question for the court is this. How did Miss Garnet's precious rabbit go from sitting in her dressing room to starting a fire inside the supposedly locked tournament room? If Mr. Pinky could do it, then surely the masked stranger could also have done it.
That is a very good question. The prosecution believes that the court should hear Fräulein Garnet's testimony about this. As soon as she is recovered from the shock, that is.
Oh, I am ready to testify. If it helps me get justice for Mr. Pinky, I will do whatever it takes. So, let's get this show started, shall we?
Wow, she put on a sunny smile real quick. I guess the ability comes with the job.
You can feel it too, right? She may be smiling, but her heart is still broken inside. We should tread carefully during this testimony.
Glad to have you perform for the court today, Fräulein. Now, please, tell the court what you know about the whereabouts of Herr Pinky on the day of the murder.
Yes, sirree. Mr. Pinky is not only my cherished childhood toy, but also my trademark Lucky Charm, so I take him wherever I go. Much to my horror, Mr. Pinky disappeared from my dressing room at some point during the Midnight Jazzstravaganza show. The crew and I started looking for him as soon as we could, but couldn't find him anywhere in the backstage area. There is no other explanation. Somebody must have stolen him. But who? And how? I I was performing live on stage all night, so there's no way I was the one who took Mr. Pinky upstairs. Ask anyone in my crew.
Nothing we haven't heard before in that testimony.
But now that she's on the witness stand, perhaps we will be able to press her for some more info.
Then that's what we'll do.
Mr. Justice, you may begin your cross-examination.
Mr. Pinky is not only my cherished childhood toy, but also my trademark lucky charm, so I take him wherever I go.
Hold it! So, you keep Mr. Pinky close to you at all times?
Yes, as you just said, the only time Mr. Pinky ever leaves my side is when I perform on stage.
So Mr. Pinky going missing must have been a big shock to you?
You can't even begin to imagine. He has helped me win all my big tournaments. Not having him with me at the table would be just terrible.
I see. When exactly was the last time you saw Mr. Pinky?
I left him on the table in my dressing room, but much to my horror, Mr. Pinky disappeared from my dressing room at some point during the Midnight Jazz Extravaganza show.
Hold it! Can you be a bit more specific about the time frame?
The last time I saw him was just before I headed off to start up the show at 11 p.m., right as scheduled.
When did you notice that Mr. Pinky was missing?
When I returned to my dressing room during the intermission at 11:30 p.m., I instantly alerted the crew to Mr. Pinky's kidnapping.
What happened then?
Well, we couldn't just cancel the rest of the show, so we ended up resuming at midnight just as scheduled.
That must have been hard for you. I hope it didn't affect your performance.
I admit, Mr. Pinky's disappearance was pretty devastating. Inside, my heart was breaking. But you know what we artists say, the show must go on. And go on it did. At least until the fire alarms came on, and we had to evacuate. What a disaster.
When was this?
I believe it was around 20 minutes past midnight. It took a while until we were allowed back in the casino, but when we did, the crew and I started looking for him as soon as we could, but couldn't find him anywhere in the backstage area.
Hold it! And you searched absolutely everywhere for Mr. Pinky?
Yes! I thought we'd find him in a jiffy, since Mr. Pinky has a GPS tracking device on him for just this sort of occasion, as well as a voice locator in the form of his laughter. However, the GPS couldn't find him, and we couldn't hear even a titter anywhere. That's when we turned the entire backstage area upside down. The crew even checked places where we knew he could not possibly be in, like the vents. But we just couldn't find a trace of him.
That is scarily thorough.
Yet somehow, Mr. Pinky ended up being found inside the tournament room of all places.
That's why I think there's only one conclusion that can be made. There is no other explanation. Somebody must have stolen him. But who? And how?
Hold it! Do you have any idea who would want to harm you or Mr. Pinky?
None whatsoever. It's really scary. We had extra security at the entrances to ensure nobody would sneak in, so I have no idea how the thief managed to get past them.
And I don't suppose you took Mr. Pinky upstairs and just forgot about it?
Of course not. But if you need me to explain why it could not have been me, please remember, I was performing live on stage all night, so there's no way I was the one who took Mr. Pinky upstairs. Ask anyone in my crew.
Hold it! You had no chance to take the doll upstairs then.
That's right. I was surrounded by my crew the moment I left the stage. I assure you, I had great many people consoling me throughout the entire intermission.
Somehow, I'm not surprised there. It certainly sounds like none of those people would wish harm on Miss Garnet.
All right, I think that's enough. Must admit, I am a little lost as to what we're supposed to think about this testimony.
To sum it up for the court, since Mr. Pinky was stolen and later discovered at the scene of the crime, this also makes the kidnapper a person of interest regarding Mr. House's murder.
Their testimony might indeed prove valuable. Of course, this court would first have to figure out who this mysterious kidnapper is. Herr Justice, might you have an idea?
Looks like we're stuck. Unless I can show some evidence as to who may have stolen Pinky that night.
Shall we make it a bit more simple so everyone can follow along? Herr Justice, was the kidnapper a crew member or an outsider?
It had to be an outsider. The entire crew was accounted for at the time of the kidnapping.
Yes, if anyone had left their post, it would certainly have affected the show.
I see. Then how do you suggest that the outsider managed to access Fräulein Garnet's dressing room? Don't forget, there was plenty of security around the backstage exits.
Yeah, Apollo. It's not like the thief just appeared out of thin air. Unless they use magic.
I don't think a wizard did it will be a sufficient explanation for the court.
Quite so, Mr. Justice. Let's hear what you really think.
Right. If the kidnapper couldn't have gotten through security, there must have been another way for them to get in and out. And it no doubt had something to do with this!
Take that! Ms. Garnet, I think you'll be relieved to hear that I've figured out how the thief managed to get past the security.
You have?
Is that so? By all means then, Herr Justice, please enlighten the rest of us.
Very well. Please take a look at the casino map. You can see the VIP elevator that goes between the tournament floor and casino floor also has one more stop. The backstage area. Now, yesterday, Miss Garnet told us something interesting. I think it's high time we head to the tournament floor.
If you're going there, you can use the backstage elevator. It will take you straight to the tournament floor.
Wait, I thought only the VIP elevator did that.
Oh, you didn't know? It's the same elevator, so it comes down here as well. Makes it easy for the performers staying in the VIP suites up in the tournament floor to get down here without being swarmed by fans.
Ms. Garnet, you say that there was extra security on the entrances, but did that include the VIP elevator?
No! I mean, you need a VIP room key to even use that elevator. Unless you're saying that the thief had one of those?
Well, Mr. Justice, are you?
Yes, it only makes sense. Considering the increased security at the entrance, using the elevator would have been the only way to sneak backstage during the performance. And Mr. Pinky did end up being found all the way up in the tournament floor.
I agree. It does sound rather plausible.
But who would want to hurt me by stealing Mr. Pinky?
That is the question. However, calling someone a thief in court is no small deal. So if you're going to accuse someone, you had better think it through first, Herr Justice.
Indeed! We can't have the real culprit get away with a heinous crime like this! My granddaughter would never forgive me!
Well, I mean, usually I indict murderers like this, so...
The only person who I believe would wish harm upon Ms. Garnet and my prime suspect for the kidnapping is Mr. Flint Rockwell! I ask that he be brought to testify!
And why do you suspect him in particular?
Because of an altercation between Ms. Garnet and Mr. Rockwell that happened not long before Mr. Pinky was stolen. Mr. Rockwell publicly accused Ms. Garnet of cheating during the charity tournament at the casino and refused to play against her. Of all the people involved in this case, Mr. Rockwell definitely has the biggest beef with Miss Garnet.
Mr. Rockwell? But I've done nothing to earn his ire.
Maybe so, but we still need to hear directly from him.
Interesting. The prosecution has no objections to hearing his testimony.
Very well. Bailiff, please bring Mr. Rockwell in to testify.
Way to go, Apollo! We're one step closer to solving the mystery of Mr. Pinky's disappearance.
It may be a long shot, but I feel confident about this. Rockwell's definitely been acting more than a little suspicious.
Let's just hope he's feeling more talkative than last time.
Witness, please state your name and occupation.
Rockville. Poker. Need summon.
Ever the blabbermouth, aren't you?
Mr. Rockwell, the court would like to hear your testimony on what happened during the tiny tourney.
Really?
I'm afraid we insist, Mr. Rockwell.
Garnet here.
What about me?
Von Toxin.
Mr. Rockwell, I must inform you that refusing to testify has heavy repercussions.
Try me.
It's fine, Your Honor. If he's having a bit of trouble performing with me here, I can take my leave. I need to be heading back to the casino anyhow. My schedule will need a lot of rearranging after this.
If you would be so kind, Fräulein.
Oh, it's not a big deal. Enjoy the rest of the show, everyone!
Now, Herr Rockwell, your testimony.
Whatever. No point, though.
I can already tell this is going to be a fun cross-examination.
My motives ain't complex. Tiny tourney was rigged. Left because Garnet cheats, is all.
Well, that was certainly short and sweet. There's not much to work with, but I bet you felt it too, Polly.
Yes, my bracelet reacted to his testimony.
Then you know what to do next. It's time to perceive the truth.
I'm on it.
Let's see just how good your poker face really is, Rockwell!
My motives ain't complex.
Hold it! Could you elaborate, please?
Was just gonna.
Herr Forehead, let the witness testify in peace.
All I did was ask a question! Why are you ganging up on me?
Life is simply unfair sometimes, huh?
Tiny tourney was rigged.
Hold it! Rigged? Do you have anything to back this claim with?
I just know.
So, nothing really substantial.
Not for me.
Well, we're getting nowhere fast with this.
Come on! You must have had something!
Objection!
The witness doesn't need to prove that the tiny tourney was actually rigged. He is just explaining the reason why he left.
Yeah? So? Left because Garnet cheats, is all.
Hold it! You didn't just leave, you literally ran away from her.
So?
That's not normal!
Had places to be.
Oh, jeez. It feels like I'm literally talking to a rock wall here. And it's been about as fruitful so far. I need to get a reaction out of this guy. Time to push harder!
Mr. Rockwell, you're not telling us the whole story. We had not even started playing before you ran, so your claim of cheating holds no water. You've got something else against Miss Garnet, and kidnapping Mr. Pinky proves it.
6 words for you, boy. Got nothing against her lucky rabbit.
There! I felt that familiar tinge in my wrist.
Your Honor, I ask that the witness's statement just now be added to the testimony.
You do? I suppose we can do that.
Come on, Rockwell. Say it again like you mean it.
Got nothing against her lucky rabbit. Got nothing against her lucky rabbit.
Gotcha! Mr. Rockwell, when you said lucky rabbit, your muscles visibly tensed up. For someone known for their legendary poker face, this kind of reaction is a clear sign that that phrase made you feel some extreme negative emotions. You clearly bear ill will toward Ms. Lucky Garnet. Come on, Be a man and own up to it, Mr. Rockwell. You stole Mr. Pinky from Miss Garnett's dressing room, didn't you?
Yeah. So? Gonna put me in jail?
Well, that was not what I was expecting.
Apollo! His reaction tells me he doesn't know what the implication is. It's your chance to catch him off guard.
Aye, aye, Trucy. Let's see how he reacts to this. Mr. Rockwell, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the reason I am asking this is because the burnt remains of that same doll were found at the scene of Mr. House's murder.
What?
You do realize, of course, that admitting to having stolen the doll now ties you to the murder.
Huh?
So, Mr. Rockwell, please testify to the court about what exactly happened between you and Mr. Pinky on the night of the murder. Otherwise, that trip to jail might be closer than you imagine.
Oh, okay.
Jeez, no need to be so mean, Apollo.
I'm sorry. I was just excited to finally get a reaction out of him. Rockwell is pretty flustered. I feel we're finally about to get somewhere with this guy. Still, looks like Klavier is not the least bit fazed by this revelation. Just what does he know that I don't?
Lucky cheats. That's why. I stole her doll. But... It's haunted! Puts the doll in a safe to keep it away. But it broke out! I thought I'd die! But when I woke up, the doll was gone, and I ran.
Mr. Rockwell, did I hear you correctly just now? Did you say that the doll you stole was haunted?
Yeah!
That's ridiculous. Haunted dolls obviously do not exist.
It was haunted! Doll had evil spirit!
He does seem genuinely terrified talking about it. Not something I'd expect from a man like Rockwell.
Mr. Justice, I hope your cross-examination will return some sense into this testimony. You may begin when ready.
Lucky cheats. That's why.
Hold it! Mr. Rockwell, if you have any evidence that Miss Garnett is a cheater, surely it would have been a better idea to present that instead of stealing her precious doll.
I just know.
So you had no evidence then?
Anyway. I stole her doll, but...
Hold it! How exactly did you go about doing this?
Knew she had a show that night. Knew where she leaves it. Took elevator backstage. People were busy. Grabbed it and left.
This really is the lamest setup for a heist I've heard. There should have at least been diamonds hidden in Mr. Pinky or something.
I suppose Mr. Rockwell would have been better off letting sleeping rabbits lie.
I feel there's an important life lesson to be learned here. Never mess with old dolls.
Anything you'd like to tell us about the doll, Rockwell?
It's haunted!
Hold it! Haunted?
Yeah.
What exactly do you mean by haunted?
That thing. It lives. And it wants revenge.
What is this, a cheap horror movie? Maybe someone should pitch the idea to the Gatewater Group and ruin the rest of my childhood. I'm sorry, but that still doesn't explain anything. What makes you think the doll is alive?
Well, I put the doll in a safe to keep it away.
Hold it! And where was this safe?
My room. Duh.
So, you hid Mr. Pinky in the safe in your room?
Yes, you dumb man.
Okay, I'm just confirming.
Stupid lawyer. So I put doll in safe. But it broke out!
Hold it! What do you mean it broke out?
Safe was locked. Then, heard a terrible laugh.
You heard the doll laugh?
Yeah! Then, sparks everywhere! It was an angry ghost!
Come on, Mr. Rockwell, are you honestly saying that you were haunted by Pinky Rabbit?
Yes!
Whoa, that came straight from the bottom of his heart. I can sense his strain from here. Of course, ghosts don't exist, but his reaction seems genuine.
I thought I'd die!
Hold it! What happened next?
Tried to run, but I tripped. Hit the floor. Then, I saw the Reaper.
You saw the Reaper?
Door opened. He's there. Eyes glowing.
Oh, I've had that dream too. Luckily, it turned out to be just a reflector hanging on the coat rack.
It was real! Spoke 2 words. Found you. After that, darkness.
You fell unconscious?
Yeah.
This Reaper character, is there anything else you can remember?
No. That's all.
Fascinating.
If Rockwell's word is to be trusted, I should assume he did not actually see the Reaper, but a certain someone with glowing eyes. But why would they be there?
But when I woke up, the doll was gone, and I ran.
Hold it! Wait, so when you came to, the doll was no longer in the safe?
Yeah, looked and it was gone. Then I ran. Good riddance.
Where exactly did you run? You were not on the tournament floor when the evacuation took place.
The fire escape, so it'd be quickest. Accident happened, so took the elevator.
When we tried to evacuate during the fire, we couldn't get the door open because of it missing a handle. Was this your doing?
Maybe.
I should note that when we initially found Herr Rockwell, he was still clutching to said handle.
I suppose that solves one mystery.
Does the prosecution really need to dignify this silly testimony with a response?
There's certainly something off with this whole testimony. And it's not just the claim that the doll is haunted and the fact that he claims to have seen the Reaper. But then, what does it mean? Why would they be out and about at the time? Time to find out!
Objection! Mr. Rockwell, in your testimony just now, you claim to have put Mr. Pinky inside the safe in your room.
Yeah?
That's interesting. After all, we did find some pink and white fur inside a safe. However, the safe was the one inside suite number 3, the masked stranger's room. If that's the case, the Reaper you saw by the door was no doubt the masked stranger who caught you red-handed snooping around their room. Now, how about you explain what you were doing there?
Ha! Easy. Switched rooms with stranger earlier.
You did what?
Yup. Was given room 4. My unlucky number made me mad. Stranger offered swap. So, we did.
But if the room belongs to you, where's all your luggage? It wasn't found during the investigation.
Lost at airport. Got enough bad luck already.
So, can you prove you switched the rooms?
Got the key. That enough? Main strangers have on snooping, not me.
Might as well make the most of this new info.
Mr. Rockwell, when did you and the stranger swap the room keys?
Back in the elevator. Good spot to trade too. No one else saw. Stranger said they'd not tell a soul. Went separate ways after.
I see. It seems to me that the witness had explained his actions quite nicely. Now then, Mr. Justice, what did all of this accomplish?
What indeed? If Mr. Rockwell was the one staying in what was supposed to be the masked stranger's room, then that means...
Your Honor! What Mr. Rockwell said just now proves that the masked stranger had to be at the scene of the crime!
What do you mean, Mr. Justice?
If the rooms were switched, then there's no way that the masked stranger's voice was transmitted over the bug in suite number 3.
Objection! Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves, yeah? Aren't you forgetting something, Herr Forehead? If you are saying that it was Herr Rockwell staying in the masked stranger's room, then whose voice was on the tape?
Indeed, Mr. Justice. If this is not the masked stranger's voice, then whose is it?
Good question. Let's think back to the tape.
Hey! It's too late now. I did what I had to. At least he won't be bothering me at the tournament now. And don't you dare lecture me on this. I'm going to hit the hay now. Don't bother calling back.
There's only one person it can be.
Your Honor, the person we hear on this tape is Mr. Flint Rockwell.
Are you deaf, Herr Forehead? The person on this recording sounds nothing like the witness.
Even with my hearing, I can tell the two sound nothing alike.
It may not sound like Mr. Rockwell, but take a look at all the evidence. First, Mr. Rockwell has the key card to the stranger's room. Second, the call from the room was made to a private number in Virginia, from where Mr. Rockwell hails. And just listen to what is being said. At least he won't be bothering me at the tournament. The caller is obviously one of the participants of the All-Stars Legends. And if you still don't believe me, Detective Sky said unknown fingerprints were lifted from the phone. We could simply compare those to Mr. Rockwell's prints.
Very good, Herr Forehead. However, there is a contradiction in your assertion. According to you, Herr Rockwell had it out for Fraulein Garnet. However, clearly the person on this tape isn't complaining about a woman.
That's right. However, I believe it is obvious who they are talking about in this call.
Go right ahead and tell us then, Mr. Justice.
Pinky Rabbit.
Pinky Rabbit?
Pinky Rabbit?
Yes, Pinky Rabbit.
They were definitely talking about Pinky Rabbit.
What on earth makes you think they were talking about Pinky Rabbit?
Stop saying rabbit!
Wow. Thank you for proving my point, Mr. Rockwell.
Witness? What is the meaning of this?
Please, I'll talk. Please, just don't say it again.
Mr. Rockwell seems to have taken on a whole new persona.
I suppose the strain of keeping that stoic front finally proved too much for him. Mr. Rockwell, what is it you want to tell us?
Everything. I
have a secret. A shameful one that I've tried hiding from the world ever since the days of my sweet adolescence. The man you see standing before you is the real Flint Rockwell. The stoic, nerves of steel persona I portray is all a trained act, down to the accent, honed to perfection over the years of excruciating practice at the monastery. I learned to numb my feelings and endure through unspeakable things. I could stare down a rabid bear, or an express train speeding down right at me. This persona is a shield that protects me from all that. There's only one thing in the world that can break it all down. Laporophobia. I'm scared to death of him.
A big man like you is afraid of rabbits?
Yes! It's those foul freaks of nature!
Sorry!
Even the mere mention of the word makes my body tense. My voice cracks, and I've got to get away. You have no idea how draining it is to maintain this unflinching facade when in the presence of them. It is something I could never hope to conquer. The roots of it all run too deep. This fear has been my curse for a long, long time. It all started on Easter morning in 1997, when I was but a timid little child. I woke up early to watch the cartoons, as children do. My parents had worked hard for the feast the night before, and were still asleep. That morning, they were supposed to play Pinky Rabbit's Easter Adventure on TV, but someone at the station messed up, and instead, they played a movie called Killer Bunnies from Beyond the Moon. I saw things no child should ever have to see, and yet, I was too terrified to look away. Ever since that day, I have been afraid to death of those things!
But the casino is full of Pinky merchandise. What difference would stealing Garnet's doll make?
All the difference in the world. During the game, you have to pay attention to your opponents and whatever they might have close to them. I can shut out everything else beyond the poker table, but not that thing staring at me. Believe me, I tried. The tiny tourney was a testament to that. I had to see if I could handle it all, and I failed pretty bad. Had I stayed, I would have no doubt broken down, and so would have my reputation as the unflinching mountain. Having your only weakness revealed to be exploited is a fate worse than death for a professional poker player.
Mr. Rockwell, allow me to tell you this. There is no shame in having fears like that. I myself remember being traumatized by a TV show from my youth. I believe it was called Herman the Clown. The only other thing I remember from that show is that if you were naughty, Herman would come and beat you with a stick while laughing hysterically. I was afraid of clowns for the longest time. It still makes me shiver thinking about it. But after confronting that fear little by little, I was able to look a clown in the eye in this very court.
Indeed, true strength lies in standing up to your fears, not only avoiding them. You may have been taught to smother your feelings, but you're only letting your fears suffocate you.
It may be the greatest challenge you have faced so far, but there is hope for you.
I'm not sure if I can do it.
You don't need to do it alone. I'm sure you can find people to help you.
I'll try. I suppose that's my only choice, now that my secret is out there. And even before that, some people were already using it against me. People like Felicia Garnett with that doll of hers!
But, Mr. Rockwell, Mr. Pinky has been Miss Garnett's mascot for as long as she has been playing. You must have realized she wasn't out to get you with it.
Oh yeah? Then explain this!
What's that, witness?
Something I've been keeping tucked away ever since I found it. This blackmail note!
Blackmail?
What?
Mr. Rockwell, you must let us see that note.
It's all yours. This is my proof of Garnett's wicked ways.
Well, what does it say, Apollo?
You had better not play too well tomorrow. Otherwise, your secret will be exposed in front of the entire world. Make sure you don't make it to the final round. Meet me at 1 a.m. on the dot in the tournament room. Or else. 31122026 to enter. No signature, though.
See? Obviously I had to do something.
Witness, please confirm something for us. You were the one who made the phone call near midnight, yeah?
Yes, that was me calling my manager after taking Garnett's doll. He needed to know what I had done. He knows I can be a handful at times. So in turn, I try to be forthright. Unlike some people who slip blackmail notes under my door.
But what makes you think it was Miss Garnett behind the note?
She was the only other competitor who saw my reaction, so she must have been the one to figure it out, right? And lo and behold, right after the tiny tourney, this freaking note awaits me on the floor in my room. Put two and two together, boy.
You seem to be forgetting. You switched rooms with the masked stranger. This note may not have been intended for you in the first place. And besides, Miss Garnett has an alibi after the tiny tourney. She was busy with a dress rehearsal immediately afterwards.
You're right. I've been such a fool. I was blinded by the fear of the whole world knowing my one weakness. But I suppose it's out there now. So, it was all for naught.
Your Honor, The defense requests that this blackmail note be added to the court record.
Request granted. The note is hereby accepted into evidence.
So, to sum things up so far, we have all but confirmed that it was Herr Rockwell who stole Fraulein Garnet's doll. He took the doll from her dressing room to his suite, where he put it in the safe, before running for his life to escape the ghost. Herr Rockwell, I have just one question for you. When you ran from your room, did you close the door behind you?
No way! I just ran!
In other words, you left the door open.
Yes, I did.
And what time was this, if I may ask?
I guess just before midnight?
I see. Thank you, Herr Rockwell. That's all the prosecution needed to hear.
Wait! No!
As we've just heard, our witness claims he left his room, leaving the door open. This, of course, means that anyone could have gone inside the room. Say, for example, the masked stranger. After all, if Herr Rockwell's testimony is to be believed, he did see the Reaper with glowing eyes by the door before passing out. Need I remind the court that we know of only one person who matches such a description? In other words, nothing has changed. The masked stranger's voice could still have been transmitted via the bug in suite number 3.
No way! I can't believe we're back arguing about this after all that. Didn't Mr. Rockwell's confession change anything?
It would seem that way. Unless Mr. Justice had more to say regarding the matter.
Of course I do, Your Honor! We thought that Mr. Rockwell was trespassing in the masked stranger's room when in fact, the exact opposite was true. However, we have not addressed how the stranger could open the door of the room Mr. Rockwell was staying in if they had swapped the keycards. Mr. Rockwell claims that he saw the Reaper standing in the doorway before passing out, so they must have opened the door somehow.
I believe the burden of proof on that matter falls on you. Herr Rockwell may have been hallucinating for all we know. The prosecution is only concerned about establishing the fact that the witness left the door open when he ran, and thus the stranger's voice could still be transmitted to the crime scene via the bug in Herr Rockwell's room.
Still, Mr. Rockwell said that after he woke up, both the doll and the Reaper were nowhere in sight.
Then it's highly likely that the stranger was in another part of the suite or simply returned to the room later. After all, the witness did not exactly search the suite before fleeing.
Ugh, that's slippery, Gavin! Even if the masked stranger could have been in the room afterwards, why would they suddenly shout, "Stop! No!"
That, I don't know. However, it doesn't change the fact that the prosecution's theory is still viable. Who knows? Maybe they saw a ghost too.
Well, there's something else your theory does not explain, Prosecutor Gavin. How did Mr. Pinky move from Mr. Rockwell's safe into the tournament room? The masked stranger was there just before Pinky disappeared, after all.
I am glad you asked, Herr Forehead. All things considered, there's only one person who could have taken it there. And that is, of course, Herr House. Obviously, since the camera footage from December is deleted, we cannot see it happen in real time. But it's the most logical explanation.
Well, can you give any reason as to why Mr. House would do this? Somehow, I doubt the best poker player in the world would be intimidated by a plush toy.
Maybe not, but we did hear Fraulein Garnet say that Herr Pinky has helped me win all my major tournaments. Think about it like this, Herr Justice. If someone were to steal your bracelet, wouldn't the fact affect you at all during the trial? Wouldn't you feel just a little off your rhythm?
I suppose.
Regardless, there's no way anyone else could have taken the doll to the tournament room.
I think you're forgetting something, Prosecutor Gavin. Our newest piece of evidence, that is. If you take a look at this blackmail note, you can see it reads, "Meet me at 1 a.m. on the dot in the tournament room or else 311-220-26 to enter."
Yes, and?
This set of digits is probably the code to the tournament room door. And if this is, in fact, the code, there's another way Mr. Pinky could have ended up in that room.
Oh?
It's simple, Your Honor. If Mr. Rockwell had the codes to the tournament room, he could have taken the Pinky Rabbit doll there himself. Perhaps even in the guise of the masked stranger. Either way, this note definitely proves that there was something fishy going on that night.
But what?
That's outrageous! All I wanted was to lock that thing away somewhere private, not put it on display!
Order! Order in the court! I'll say, I did not see this coming at all!
Okay, I've got them riled up. Gotta keep up the momentum here. Mr. Rockwell, what do you have to say for yourself?
Well,
Objection! Oh, Herr Forehead, where do I even begin? I could start with the fact that dozens of guests saw Herr Rockwell and the masked stranger get in the VIP elevator together. They are clearly not the same person.
We saw that too, Polly.
Oh yeah, now that you mentioned it.
Furthermore, the time for the meeting in this note does not overlap with our murder at all. In fact, by 1 a.m., the entire floor had already been secured by the police. I can assure you our officers certainly didn't witness any secret meetings in the tournament room at the time. But perhaps I'll just tell the court why Herr Rockwell absolutely could not have gone to the tournament room while the crime was taking place.
Oh?
As we heard earlier, the witness attempted to flee the tournament floor. After breaking the handle on the fire escape, he naturally had to use the VIP elevator to leave. However, due to the same bug in the computer systems that deleted the security camera footage, all elevators in the casino stopped in place precisely when the clock struck midnight. This means Herr Rockwell was helplessly trapped in the VIP elevator during the murder and was only freed by the police officers on their way upstairs, thus granting him a flawless alibi.
See? I had nothing to do with House's death!
It would certainly be impossible for Mr. Rockwell to be our culprit if that's the case. Mr. Justice, are you quite done with the witness?
I guess we're out of luck. I can't see any way to crack that alibi.
I don't think we need to. Mr. Rockwell has been pretty honest with us after the change in his persona. He's unlikely to be hiding anything else. The defense has no further questions, Your Honor.
You're free to go in that case, Mr. Rockwell.
Thank you. I need some time to reflect after all this.
And with that, we return to the prosecution's original scenario. If Herr Rockwell held onto the note that entire time, no one else could have seen it and thus used the code, making it irrelevant to the case at hand.
Seriously?
Damn! Klavier keeps insisting nothing has changed. But I've still got questions that need answering!
Don't give up, Apollo. Keep poking more holes in his theory. It'll fall apart eventually.
Death by 1,000 tiny contradictions, huh? It's worth a shot. All we need is to dig a bit deeper into the new evidence we got. We still need to address the issue of where this note came from.
Why? As the prosecution has just shown, it bears no relevance to the murder. But if you really insist, there are two potential candidates who knew the code to the door: Herr House and the defendant, Jack Porter. If House is the author, then the note bears no relevance because he was already dead before 1 a.m. And if Herr Porter wrote it, then this note has him threatening the masked stranger, which does not bode well for your client. Nevertheless, I remind the court that this note never found its way to the intended recipient, thanks to Rockwell. Thus, I strongly suggest that you do not press this issue further, Herr Forehead.
As much as I hate to admit it, Klavier has a point. Still, this note is seriously bothering me. Especially since Jack received a similar note, but his meeting was to take place at midnight. What does it mean?
So, where does this leave us off again?
Herr Judge, the prosecution believes it is firmly established that it was the victim who took the Pinky Rabbit doll from Herr Rockwell's room to the crime scene. In other words, nobody else did, or indeed could have entered the crime scene. As long as this is the case, the defendant is still the only person who could have shot the victim. The fact that Herr Pinky was taken to the scene by House and later started the fire is entirely incidental. Herr House's killer had to be someone who was on the tournament floor at the time the elevator stopped working. Therefore, the killer can be nobody else but Herr Jack Porter.
Really? Because when I look at the security footage overlooking the cache, I sure can't see Mr. Pinky. And I'm pretty sure he didn't just hop there by himself after the crime had taken place.
Just because you can't see him, Herr Forehead, doesn't mean he's not already hiding somewhere among his brothers. Besides, unlike Herr House, the stranger had no reason to take Herr Pinky from Rockwell's room, nor would it have been possible for them. Unless you're finally ready to answer that question about how the stranger supposedly got to the scene before the murder?
We're back right where we started!
What are we going to do, Apollo? Prosecutor Gavin just keeps shooting down our attempts to place the masked stranger on the scene.
Then perhaps we need to try a different approach.
What do you mean, Polly?
I'll tell you soon. I just need to gather my thoughts first.
We just received new information about the elevator. Does it change anything at all? The VIP elevator was stuck at midnight, which means nobody could enter the tournament floor from that point on. Wait, then this would also mean... Of course!
Objection! Your Honor! Before you even consider passing a verdict, we need to address a glaring problem with Prosecutor Gavin's theory.
A glaring one, you say?
Well. Seems Herr Forehead has found his second wind. What exactly do you have an issue with this time?
Let us consider the following facts. We know that the masked stranger went to the tournament floor as soon as they arrived, and never came back down according to their fans. But, since the masked stranger's voice is on the tape, it must mean that they were somewhere on the tournament floor at the time of the murder, correct?
Correct.
This leaves us with one critical question. How did the true masked stranger leave the tournament floor after the VIP elevator got stuck? They must have found a way, as the police certainly didn't find them during the evacuation!
Well...
Gotcha!
Prosecutor Gavin, isn't it also true that your team never found the masked stranger's equipment, despite an extensive police search of the tournament floor?
We searched the tournament floor, but we didn't find anything belonging to the stranger. However, there's a possibility that they disposed of the gear over the tournament floor balcony after midnight. That way, they could have retrieved it later during the evacuation.
But that can't be!
And I suppose you can prove that?
Yes, he can. Because I was standing at the balcony when the crime took place all the way until shortly before the police arrived and locked down the floor.
So to sum it all up, the VIP elevator broke down at midnight before the murder happened. Furthermore, the fire escape was also unusable thanks to Mr. Rockwell. Nobody should have been able to enter or leave the tournament floor. The masked stranger's voice is undoubtedly on this tape. Even if we assume their voice was transmitted from the bugged room, the fact remains that the masked stranger was on the tournament floor at the time of the murder. Yet, when the police searched the tournament floor, the stranger or their gear was nowhere to be found. So I ask you this. How did the masked stranger disappear, Prosecutor Gavin?
That is an excellent question.
All right! You got him, Apollo!
Man, it feels good!
Well, Prosecutor Gavin, what do you have to say?
Oh. Please excuse me, Herr Judge. It's Detective Sky on the line. Hello, Fräulein. Oh, did you? Well, I'll be damned. Thanks for letting me know. I always love hearing from you. She hung up. Such an ice queen she is.
Prosecutor Gavin, taking phone calls mid-trial is extremely rude.
I'm sorry, Herr Judge, but our investigation team has found something very interesting to all of us. Something that may very well change everything we know about this case.
Everything? Then, could they have found the masked stranger?
I humbly ask for a brief recess to prepare everything for the court.
No objections from the defense.
Then the request is granted. Court will take a 10-minute recess for this purpose.
Good grief. I need to sit down for a bit after that back and forth.
Deep breaths, Apollo. We still need your cords of steel.
Hey, you.
How are you holding up, Mr. Porter?
No probs over here. For the record, Paulo, you're right about the number being the door code. but I certainly didn't invite anyone for a chat myself.
Guess that was also Mr. House's doing. Just like the letter you received. What was he planning?
No clue, hombre. Speaking of plans, though, what do you make of the stuff the prosecutor just said?
We're about to find out. Whatever it is, it must be something extremely important.
It's a shame that the one time we had Klavier on the ropes, he's saved by the bell.
Lad's got the devil's luck. Maybe I invited the wrong attorney to partake in the tourney. Gotta say, that fella is like a wall. Good thing Nicky's taught you his tricks, ain't it?
Oh, I'm certain Apollo's managing all by himself.
Daddy!
Hello there, my two daring defenders. Are you winning in the courtroom?
We're still in the game.
You've been missing out on quite a show, Nicky.
My loss is your gain, I suppose. Looks like I've arrived at a particularly good time for you.
Lay it out for us, Daddy. What'd you find out?
I pulled some strings, and an acquaintance of mine will be delivering some technical documents of the Royal Flush Casino for us later today. And as the icing on the cake, here's a copy of the AC3 case file. Quite an interesting piece of legal history. And a very helpful one, too. See, if you take a look at this part here.
The trial will resume shortly. Would everyone please return to the courtroom?
We're out of time for now. I'll tell you the rest of the details after the trial. I'm glad I made it in time to see the finale.
Appreciate the hard work, Nicky. Look, once this whole thing blows over, I'd like to talk about something, if that's all right.
Sure, I guess. Well, time to earn your keep, Apollo. Go get him.
Right. Cords of steel, don't fail me now!
Court is now back in session for the trial of Mr. Jack Porter. Prosecutor Gavin, has the evidence been delivered to you?
Yes, it has. Herr Judge, members of the court, I would like to announce that the prosecution has located the masked stranger, in a manner of speaking.
Yes! This could be the break we're waiting for!
That's marvelous news! But what do you mean by in a manner of speaking, Prosecutor Gavin?
It should be obvious to everyone that Herr House was not the masked stranger, because his mask lacked the unique voice changer. After a thorough search of the hotel, the police have managed to locate the true masked stranger's suit and mask, complete with the voice changer. They were both in pristine condition, a bit of dust notwithstanding.
Pray tell, where did you find this evidence?
That's the kicker, Your Honor. It was discovered on the casino floor. Inside a duffel bag belonging to Herr Phoenix Wright.
Wait! What?
Daddy's bag? But how?
I can't believe what I'm hearing! The masked stranger is Mr. Wright?
Well, looks like the cat is out of the bag.
Daddy, this is no time to be joking around!
Mr. Wright? What is the meaning of this? Explain yourself at once!
Hold it! There's no way Daddy has been traveling around the world without my knowledge. He can hardly get up from the couch when you want him to.
And he was right there with us when the masked stranger arrived at the casino!
Of course. Herr Wright may not be the masked stranger who travels the world to play in tournaments, but he just might be the one to have worn the suit on the night of the murder.
Mr. Wright, it would seem that your passion for playing poker has once again gotten you in a difficult situation. I warned you about the dangers of gambling, didn't I?
What can I say? I like to live dangerously.
This is ridiculous! Mr. Wright has absolutely nothing to do with this murder!
Really? Because, as I recall, the culprit has to be one of the people with access to the tournament floor. Let us recall where each of them was at the time of the murder. Fräulein Garnet was performing live on stage. Herr Rockwell was stuck in the VIP elevator. And Herr Nash, who technically had a chance to commit the crime, had no way of getting to Herr Wright's duffel bag. And I'm sure Herr Justice and Fräulein Wright can vouch for each other. And since it could not have been an outsider due to limited access to the tournament floor, all that remains is Herr Wright, who has no alibi.
Interesting theory, Prosecutor Gavin. In fact, it's so interesting, I would love to hear how exactly you believe I pulled it off.
I'll get to it. But first, I believe this kind of evidence warrants another day of investigation. Don't you, Herr Judge?
Why? Any objections, Mr. Justice?
Are you kidding me? Absolutely not!
Very well. It is the opinion of the court that in order to pass final judgment, we need to know how the masked stranger escaped the tournament floor, as well as how Mr. Wright may or may not be involved in this case. To that extent, it is ordered that Mr. Wright surrender himself for questioning immediately.
You've got it, Judge.
I should hope this final day of investigation will shed some light into this conundrum this case is turning out to be. For now, court is adjourned.
With the masked stranger's outfit found, we're one step closer to identifying the person behind the mask. Of course, we'll also have to show that Mr. Wright has nothing to do with this crime. But then, how on earth did the masked stranger's outfit end up in his bag? We're running out of time, and the mysteries keep piling up. I can only hope that we'll manage to find the answers we need before our final showdown tomorrow.